It is Saturday, the 1st of March, 2025. Very early, but I'm always up early. And my apologies again for the bathrobe, but I don't like waking people up when I'm super early, super early. And so it is the weekend, so I can do what I want. Anyway, before I get into any of the really incredible videos that I was looking at regarding Zelensky and Trump and Carney and Trudeau and so many others, like I'm going to talk about local news. Community Voice, Carleton Place in Almont. And this is the district that Pierre Poilievre, before he became the leader of the Conservative Party, he was the leader of it. Anyway, rural homelessness at extreme rate. Not even making that up. It is now infecting rural Canada, which I've been saying now for years was going to happen under Chrystia Freeland, under the Liberals, under this current cabinet, overall, NDP, Bloc, Conservatives as well. Yes, I am bringing them up. And actually, I think that Pierre gets called out by Trump as well. I'm not sure, but rural homelessness is skyrocketing. Park encampments are almost impossible to dismantle, and call the county if you think someone is struggling to find shelter, not the municipality. Those were the key messages Emily Hullington, Director of Social Services at Lanark County, delivered to Town Council at the 28th January Committee of Whole meeting. Homelessness in Ontario, I just want to make sure we're still on off mute. Okay, good. Anyways, homelessness in Ontario has been growing quite rapidly since about 2016. When did Trudeau get it? Oh yeah, it was the end of 2015. And by the way, I didn't vote for him then. Never since. I have voted for Liberals before, but it was definitely not Justin Trudeau, because even at that time, people within my community knew that he was not going to do well for Canadians at all and to serve his own self-interests. And anyway. And then Doug Ford, he gets voted in, rewarded too for his fucking bad behavior. He's the Premier of Ontario. I'm sorry for swearing, my goodness. It's so unnecessary. I'm trying so hard to stop. It's just my career. It's just friggin', I don't know, grew me into being like more of a potty mouth, I guess. Yeah, Doug Ford. He's been in for years. He exploited Canadians and Ontarians during COVID. And he's wrong about what's going on in Ukraine. He's been wrong about what's going on in Israel and Palestine, supporting the wrong side of fucking history at every single turn. At every single turn, he has done nothing good for Canadians and served his own self-interests and his other lobbyist, politician, corporate friends, right? And shredding and destroying land all over Ontario at accelerated rates since COVID. And look at what we're dealing with now as well, with the housing crisis we're having, with the increase in crime rates in places that used to be like suburbs, got overdeveloped and flooded with people where it was not sustainable, again at alarming rates under these people, and we're rewarding them for their bad behavior. And he's a cheater too, like I said as well. And we're rewarding them with re-elections. So how can we justify, like, when all the information comes out with all the crimes that he's been connected to and the enabling the collapse of Canada, how could he get held accountable for that? Anyway, investigations need to be done. Obviously, this needs to be peaceful. I've been saying that since the beginning, because any other way is just going to further fuck over Canadians and remove more freedoms and liberties from us. Obviously. Yeah. Province-wide, 81,515 people were known to be homeless last year, up 25% since 2022. So this was even after lockdowns and stuff like that were finally lifted at the end of 2022. And actually, there's still restrictions and mandates, by the way, from like the pandemic era that are still legacy fucking being pushed. Oh my God. Yeah. Compare that to 154% jump in rural areas. Ridiculous. So up 25% in more developed areas, and in rural areas up 154% from 2016 to 2025. The numbers of homeless rural people has gone from 1,670 to over 4,200 people over that. And then there's more. It's just like, it's so frustrating that even in our friggin' local news, oh my God. But vote for Doug after reading that, you fucking idiots. No offense. I'm sorry. I just shouldn't. Anyway. So this was sent to me by contact from Stephen Ratner. The US has given Ukraine a lot of support since the war started, but taken as a share of GDP, we only come in at 17th place. Again, like it is what it is. Like he's just giving the comparables, but overall, collectively, they've spent hundreds of billions of dollars. No, I mean taxpayers, and then like half of that, like as Zelensky is going to say, didn't even make it to Ukraine. Like I've said millions of times, and again, even with the support that we're giving them regarding weaponry, they like probably half have already been sold on the black market or slotted to. Anyway, so aid to Ukraine percentage of GDP, Europe and US Canada ranking. We're 24th, by the way, and we get obviously no contributions through EU institutions. With all the money that we've been giving, it's been all taxpayers' money, but 0.45% of GDP, sorry. But if you look at the other European countries, like Estonia, Denmark, and Lithuania, they're over 2% each. So Estonia is top on the list with 2.51% of their GDP going to fund a genocide. Denmark 2.48, Lithuania 2.08. Just like the more European countries. In 14th place is Germany at 0.71%. And then US at 17 at 0.53%. Yep. Very interesting. So it's going to show more stuff. Oh, yeah. So from another contact, Ethos and Eris. I don't think he sleeps. He's on the West Coast. Anyway, I've talked about him in his Discord page. He has a lot of government data and access to information requests that have been filtered through his Discord page, and it's all broken down by tab. I might show that again, but anyway, he put in an access to information request for iodine tablets from 2022 to 2024. And like they've given the allotments and stuff like that, but they have not given the quantities. That's all been redacted. Why would you redact the quantity from 2022 to 2024? Potassium iodide, that's to protect against radiation poisoning. For those of you that don't know, assists with that, with blocking and like the radiation effects. And I've had potassium iodide in my friggin' camper bag in my first aid kits for years now. I think it's a great idea to have. Just in case. Very interesting. Okay, now on to Instagram. Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay. So these are some tweets that I've posted over the years. And I talked about them a bit in yesterday's video, but for anyone new. So I tagged NATO in a tweet. This was November 15th, 2022. The same day that 2 Polish farmers died due to a Ukrainian missile strike. They say it was an accident, stuff like that. They said it afterwards. After people like me were saying that it was not right. They were blaming Russia. NATO was blaming Russia. Even people like Wayne, the chief of defense staff, was putting Article 5 on the table, even on social media. And so, like, even at this time, I'm showing you that same day. I tagged NATO. What else can I do as a citizen of the world, right? But to try to prevent disaster if you can, right? I don't think I'm anyone special, but I'm just saying that the more people that peacefully put posts like this out and tag these organizations and these people, the more chances there are of them actually receiving it, getting those messages, right? Anyway, because of the algorithms, the censorship, the shadow banning, all that stuff. So anyways, please do not consider Article 5, which means NATO involvement. Just to be clear, do not escalate this. We need to avoid playing into World War II. Canadian politics is what I tagged as well, because this was fucking politicized. The Chief of Defense Staff and Anita Anand, who was the Minister of National Defense at the time. And this was like just such a, even thinking back to this was such a stressful time, because I was like, fuck, like we're gonna get involved in a way that's gonna further impact Canadians as well, even on our own soil. And I just want to pull up something here. No. So I just want to see because I forget when he died. Friggin' advertisements. All right. Anyway, I was going to share the post. Oh, I realize now that you didn't see because I didn't have the. I'll just put it back up first. So this is the tweet. Wait 1 second. Yeah. So this was the tweet I was just talking about, just to show you the date, 15 November 2022, 7:22 p.m. This was after already talking about what actually happened and trying to address that. My LinkedIn account got deleted shortly after this as well. Talked about that. And I was like, people are gonna get friggin' duped yet again because we have friggin' morons at the top, not at the medium levels. Like there's so many heroes I know, right? That if these friggin' people at the top, like the Brenda Lucky types, would actually sit down and talk with some of their friggin' chain of command at the lower levels, they would be awakened as to the actual reality of the friggin' world. Because I talk to people all the friggin' time. They're talking to me like they're literally still serving in government, using me as a voice because they think that eventually, at some point, I'm gonna start going viral because I've been calling this shit out for literally years, and they're whistleblowing and exposing this stuff because they know that that's the right thing to do for humanity, for Canadians. That's actually their job, and so if it means calling out or exposing corrupted people from within that are at the most pivotal positions. It's anyway, very interesting. All right. Second Canadian to die fighting in Ukraine, repatriated by family, not Ottawa. They don't fucking care about you. So he was a former Patricia, Joseph Hildebrand. I've talked about him before, but he passed away in 2022 at the end of it. I forget the friggin' date because I thought it was November. I should know this, but or December. Yeah, he was blown away. Yeah. So he was trying to help, and this was I was also working with these people with it, but because I wasn't vaccinated, I couldn't go to Ukraine. But I know multiple people who went there to try to assist because they were getting sucked nuts. I shouldn't say that because they were getting misinformed, including by our chief of defense staff, Wayne Eyre, who is also a PP Patricia, and he was considered to be a legend in the regiment in the Canadian Armed Forces, and until COVID, no offense, but and so people it's like a war cry, like rallying the troops, right? When you're talking about things like Article 5, when you're talking about things like going to war with people that are, all these awful things, right? So November 7th, Chris's phone rang around 7 a.m. Okay, so yeah, so November 7th. Yeah. 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 Patricia Capbrass right there. That's the badge. Oh. And I think that his blood is on Wayne Eyre and Justin Trudeau's and all of them. I think it's on their hands. And yeah, I don't know if you can see this, but yeah, this is Capbrass. This is if you were in the Special Forces, and this is the regular Green Army beret and Capbrass. But yeah, same friggin' Capbrass as Wayne Eyre, the Chief of Defense Staff, where multiple people that were veterans in the military went over, and some lost their lives, got injured, saw the most awful things, and yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. So as mentioned yesterday, on the 14th of February, on Valentine's Day, after just getting crazy friggin' harassing texts from a lunatic the night before Valentine's Day. Interesting time too. Like, why are you anyway thinking about me during the most romantic period? Anyway, And even though I was going through a lot of shit, the Emergency Act was declared. I emailed Pierre Poilievre even before the voting started because I was tracking the fact that they were going to be putting this up as a vote. And it's not like, do not vote for the Emergency Act. Like, it's unconstitutional, unlawful. I didn't use those terms, but I said it's like you can't do this. Like, it's like going against Canadians, and you don't understand what's going on. Anyway, and conservatives did vote against largely the Emergency Act being declared, even at the time. Give them credit for that. But anyways, even 10 days before Russia actually allegedly invaded, for months I was tracking this, where people were talking about tensions rising, like escalation of NATO assets and funding and weaponry and advanced laser technology, and biolabs connected to even Hunter Biden with like financially and corruption and the CIA. So I'm all over the place. But anyway, this should have been resolved diplomatically, peacefully, before it kicked off, right? There were so many opportunities, and Russia and Ukraine absolutely wanted to go to the table and have peaceful negotiations moving forward, like a peace deal. It would have been more beneficial, clearly, in so many different ways, to Ukraine and Ukrainian people had that peace deal been accepted then, because guess what? Now, not only are you completely in debt, and you have at least hundreds of thousands of soldiers that have died, multiple more injured, your whole country is profoundly impacted and traumatized right now because of Zelenski, a puppet, liar, propagandist, and now you're getting more concessions that you're going to have to provide to Russia at this point, right? And let's see how the friggin' negotiation. So anyways, this is just to point out that, how did I know this and share this? And I'm tagging people like Pierre Poilievre and Chrystia Freeland at the bottom there, Kath Freeland. She was the deputy prime minister at the time, and the finance minister. Well, Mark Carney was also involved in the financial debacle as well, and they were somehow surprised that this happened, even 10 days later, after I was even saying it on public platforms, but also in my communities and my networks prior to, and it was even on my whiteboard, actually, even prior to the Freedom Convoy coming. And I reiterate this because so much could have been mitigated, and so much harm and suffering and money could have been, oh my God, saved internationally had this been dealt with properly. And we had weak leadership, especially with Justin Trudeau, also, again, fully supporting and enabling psyops, whether he realizes it or not. It's just frustrating. All those people died. So this was 2021. This is Mark Carney. Make no mistake, the money is now there if the globe truly wants to arrest the climate crisis. They've been talking about it then. Yeah, today through the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero GFANZ, over 130 trillion of capital from blah, blah, blah. Anyway, transforming the economy, COP26. So even 4 years ago, this is my comment. I would prefer you get arrested, to be honest. And I'm just trying to add some credibility to my resume here, just to say that people claim that conspiracy theorists are usually days, weeks, or months ahead of reality. I would argue that a lot of us, not even just me, but a lot of us are years in advance, talking about the scripts and what policies would be implemented and what natural and man-made disasters would happen and where. It's also predictable because they don't change the script. That's just, it is what it is. These are my two dogs playing with stick. You. Smokey just sounds a little rough sometimes with him. He still has
the stick, Ranger.
Oh, he still
Get the stick.
He still has his leash on because we were on this is technically kind of like a public road, and he goes off. And there were a lot of turkeys out yesterday, so I didn't want him to. I wanted to be able to grab him quick if I had to. Anyway.
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy.
You're going to see more of these clips.
Destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come to the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems?
Brings people, even sellout celebrities on propaganda tours. My God, like again, I could go back to my videos. I've been saying this is what happens to like celebrities, government officials, like even like the political types. It's Yuri Bezmenov was talking about this in the 70s and 80s. Like how we don't oh my God. Anyway.
What, bringing people into your military?
Do we have
and do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems.
Anyway, I'm going to go into the actual videos with him from Stephen Gardner. Yeah, he had some good content yesterday regarding this. So,
well, it's not every day you get to see President Trump yell at Volodymyr Zelensky about not being grateful and not wanting to avoid World War III. I want to go through this story and many others. To help me do that, I have Tyler Boyer. Tyler, thank you so much for joining me.
Happy to be here, always.
So some background, Tyler is the COO for Turning Point. He works with Charlie Kirk and others to put on these incredible events, go to college campuses. I mean, how many red and white Make America Great hats have you guys given away around the country?
I think we ended up somewhere in the ballpark. I think we had an entire warehouse here it was
clear. President Trump revealed today that in a private conversation between himself and President Joe Biden, who do you blame for your removal from the White House and losing the 2024 election? And he told him that President Biden blamed Barack Obama for causing the loss of the Democrat election, for Kamala Harris, and for getting him kicked out of the White House. What are your thoughts on him opening up about that to President Trump and his thoughts on blaming Barack Obama?
Yeah, I mean, it's showing a huge discrepancy in the left right now, and this is the problem that they have is they don't know where to go. We arguably on the conservative side have a much deeper bench, and a huge amount of credit for that goes to President Trump, who opened up, I think, an entirely new, a new vertical, if you will, within the conservative movement, which is just people thinking outside the box and wanting to be a little bit more pugnacious and think about things and really patriotically setting aside your own personal business in order to get involved with politics. And that's now the conversation that exists on our side, where the left is kind of now painted themselves into a corner a little bit with their very structured bench that they have, which has dissipated quite a bit, mainly because they've just been on the wrong side of a lot of issues, the vast majority of issues. But when you have kingmakers like President Obama, it starts to become a very small room, a very small chorus of people who get to decide. And our side is the opposite of that right now. Our side is we have too many cooks in the kitchen oftentimes, but that produces a much better result when it comes to candidate selection generally, is by saying, hey, we've got a person that more people versus one guy that lives in Martha's Vineyard. So that's a good thing for the conservative movement. The question is what I talk about all the time is party discipline. If the Republican Party can be disciplined, like truly disciplined, like have a really strong structure, understand everything that's happening broad-based at the same time, then that's when you have really significantly increased outcomes for electoral success. And what we talk about oftentimes with people is, look, you got to have the money to run.
So I'll keep going here, but on my end, it looks like I'm frozen. Okay, I want to go over something. President Trump and J.D. Vance, they're trying to work with Volodymyr Zelensky to end this war, to end the killing. America doesn't want to put up boots on the ground. We don't want to put up any more military equipment. And taxpayers, they're done. They've seen how much money has gone to foreign countries. Let me roll this tape. They got into a yelling match in the Oval Office, and then we'll react to it together.
kind
Yep.
of diplomacy
Sort of
that's
a-
going to end the
sort of.
destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not strong,
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come to the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this
have you
conflict.
ever been to Ukraine that you see the problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring people, you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you. But you have nice ocean, and don't feel now.
Okay, watch
What a
this now,
little
Tyler. He just said, America has problems, and you're going to get into war if you don't give us more money. Watch how Trump reacts to this threat.
But you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know that.
bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering
position to
questions.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this.
what
I'm not
You're in
dictating.
no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
You
We're
will-
going to feel very
you will
good.
feel influenced.
I
We're
mean,
going to
just
feel
as
very
I'm
good and
telling
very
you,
strong.
You will feel influenced.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed
From the
yourself
very-
to be in a
from
very
the very
bad position,
beginning
and he
of the
happens
war.
to be right about
From
it.
the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a
Mr.
good
I-
position.
I was
You don't
in-
have the cards right now. With us, you start
I'm
having
not playing
cards.
cards.
But right now, you
I'm
don't.
very
Yeah, you're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War III.
What are you
You're
thinking about?
gambling with
What are you
World
thinking
War
about?
III. And
You-
what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this
And
country.
keeps on cutting Trump off too, which is like again super disrespectful. They're going to get into the business and stuff like that. I will say that under Biden, the corruption was alarming with their connections to Ukraine, even as early as 2014 with Hunter Biden, the financials and all that stuff, and a staged and planned coup with CIA assets involvement and other NATO assets in Ukraine and in surrounding countries. And so I'm interested in what Trump's going to do with this. And like, did he profit from these wars as well? Like, look at the financials. Is there financial incentive? I don't know. Anyways, I'm going on all these tangents, but there are definitely things that I'm concerned about regarding Trump, regarding Space Force, regarding biodigital convergence using AI and cyber technologies and stuff like that because of the people that he's in contact with, and a possible staged fake alien invasion or of sorts. You know, like I don't know. He hasn't talked about the moon landings yet. Addressed that. There's been no real Epstein files released that we didn't already have access to even like a few years ago, and MLK, JFK. There are people getting arrested and charged though in government. So I don't know if people are even tracking that, but the U.S. is holding people within government, even at the highest levels of like various different organizations, accountable. And this is something that is a green flag. These are really good things. And would have this been avoided under Trump? Like, we have to look at this stuff.
Country.
I'm
It's
with
back
all
to you.
respect to your
Far
country.
more than a lot of people said
wearing
they
respect.
should have.
Have you said thank you once?
A lot of times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
you said thank
Even
you.
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of
what are you
America
speaking about?
and the president who's trying to save your country.
Exactly.
All
From
right,
you.
so it appears Zelensky has shown up hoping to get more money, more weapons, and Trump is solely focused on ending this war and ending the killing. Your reaction to this argument in the Oval Office?
Oh man, it's so refreshing to watch, and I love, I think Trump's response is pretty expected. I mean, he does that a lot to people. We've seen this happen like 3 or 4 times already since he's been in office, where he kind of repudiates people on the spot, and it's really walking into a buzzsaw for most people. But I think what's really interesting, really refreshing, is also JD's response, which he gives a little bit more of a wingman approach to this, which is like, hey, buddy, like, we're trying to solve this for you. You have come in here with a huge amount of gruff lack of respect and appreciation. And I mean, you should be coming in here just, thanking the American people up and down. And JD's exactly right, is that you had Zelensky going out basically campaigning for Kamala Harris everywhere he went.
Yep.
And his response, I mean, it's pretty gutsy to come down to the White House, the Oval Office, and basically offend the sitting president of your number one funder. And therein lies the problem. I think that Zelensky, I mean, I'll tell you what, I've been told by some friends I trust that are kind of more on the inside of these conversations is I think Zelensky knows that faucet has been turned off. There's no chance to get any more funding. It's President Trump's been very clear that, we're not rebuilding Ukraine. We're not, dumping trillions of dollars into rebuilding a state that has been self-sufficient for so many years since the fall of the USSR. And, that wasn't his goal. His goal was to come in and almost have this interaction so then he can go cry to NATO and to the rest of the European Union that, we're not doing enough for them. And so he can go, hit up somebody else for funding. And that's, that's where this thing gets really tricky for him because, I think remember, Ukraine is a country that half the people really don't like Zelensky that much. And you can argue it's more. That's part of the reason why they haven't held an election for so long. They just put off the election and called for pushing that off. But you have a circumstance.
It's also on hold because they're the justification is that they are in a war, and there's no elections during war times, which is also what I was like, oh fuck, like Biden. Not looking good for him to win, and Kamala either, obviously. And so, like, what crazy things would these loonies do in order to avoid an election, knowing that they're going to lose, even with all the money invested in the campaigning and stuff like that, and the ridiculous celebrities that sold out your country and supported her, even Cardi B, that was like multiple times on social media platforms. I would never support a president, a politician. And then literally like not long after, like she's singing for friggin' Kamala, saying the complete opposite of what she was saying on social media to her fans. And unfortunately, they have a lot of influence on the future generations, right? Like kids are not looking at what I share. They're not looking at what Stephen Gardner or Megyn Kelly or Russell, none of the major podcasters, not even Joe Rogan or any of these shows. Kids are they're listening to music, they're playing video games. They're online, and these influencers, there's more of an impact than again anything for children and future generations, like young adults too, 20s.
Where he could become extraordinarily unpopular to the point where he may not be able to step foot back in Ukraine if he's not careful about how he reacts. And there's a lot of pro-Russia Ukrainians. There's a lot of Ukrainians that aren't necessarily pro-Russia, but aren't also really trusting the leadership of Zelensky. I would say there's probably a minority of people. I wouldn't say super minority, but probably around 30% of the country who probably trust Zelensky's moves here. And I don't think anything that he just said earned him any greater ground.
And they're trusting lies, right? It's the people that are trusting him, they're suckers. Just like Canada, people that are trusting Justin Trudeau, Chrystia Freeland, Mark Carney, you're a sucker. And I respectfully mean that. You're a sucker.
With his own people.
Yeah, I mean, Trump has been very clear for 18 months. I want this war to end. I'm not giving you any more money. So then to come there and try and pick a fight while the mainstream media is recording, I don't think it did him very many favors. And Trump has already put out on Truth Social, I'll just read this. He said, we had a very meaningful meeting in the White House today. Much was learned that could never be understood without conversation under such fire and pressure. It's amazing what comes out through emotion. And I have determined that President Zelensky is not ready for peace if America is involved, because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. I don't want advantage. I want peace. He disrespected the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he's ready for peace. So
when he wears the suit,
I feel like we're about to see President Trump pivot from supporting Ukraine and trying to work with Putin to maybe even abandoning Ukraine and saying, Europe, he's your problem now. We're not getting involved. I don't know. Where do you see this going? It's obvious that Trump is basically at the end of his rope.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the reality with Russia is, if Russia wanted to start World War III, they would have.
A long time
they
ago.
would have ignored everything and just move forward and just obliterated.
Excuse me.
And they haven't done. They've lost a lot of lives on both sides of this fight. This is not.
Oh my God! Like this is like so. Even Russian soldiers dying as well, right? Like, and I know that people don't want to hear about that, but these people are also victims of this fucking war, guys. Like, I'm sorry for swearing. And there have been so many different reasons why Russia could have easily easily justified escalating things further with Ukraine, and they didn't. For example, Snake Island, when they blamed Russia, saying that, like, was 12 Ukrainian soldiers died on Snake Island by Russian arms, hands. That's what got us. This was right at the beginning of the friggin' like when like everything kicked off, right? And so people were really upset about that, and politicians, people like the highest levels of government, were believing this and saying it. Even Biden, like, it's and Zelensky, and so he's a liar. And again, you're the president. How do you, like, you have access to, like, the highest level intelligence? How did you not know that? When again, I have shown that even I knew that within hours. And again, this is not a brag at all. It's because of the community I'm in, but in my network. But it's like, I'm not understanding how people like me are not working with these people at these levels. And if they are, then why are they not listening to them, right? Like, we need to look at these points. Anyways, Ghost of Kiev was a lie. The rape allegations were a lie. Blowing up Nord Stream and Nord Stream 2, again, blaming it on Russia. That was not Russia. That was NATO and Ukraine assets that did that. Blowing up of the dam, targeting civilian infrastructure, blaming it on Russia, attacking Moscow. Look, there's just drone strikes. There's just so much. The Polish farmers, I've already talked about that, but lying about that as well. And people are talking about Article 5. Like, what? Why? He's a liar. Justin Trudeau is a liar, whether he realizes it or not, or cares or not. And it's literally killing people. Not to sound dramatic, ladies and gentlemen.
This has been an issue that's been going on since the Orange Revolution.
They could have escalated
when our government, helped ignite these things in Ukraine, just a little bit more than a decade ago, and really it was longer than a decade because they were working on this behind the scenes for a decade before that. And we've seen nothing but political instability. In fact, it was a huge loss after the quote unquote Orange Revolution, which, for your listeners, go study a little bit about this if you don't know anything about it. But effectively, the U.S. government was ceding this revolutionary type thing going on in Ukraine to oppose Russian-based, positive Russia-based relations between Ukraine and Russia. And, it was back and forth. You remember the former president getting poisoned by Putin and there's just a lot there. That's not our battle. And if you know the deeper context, and I don't know if you know this about me, but I speak Russian fluently. Actually, I went on my LDS mission to Russia. I lived in the Don Basin. So I have a little bit more insight, and I have friends on both sides of this fight. I have a lot of good Ukrainian friends, a lot of good Russian friends who are over there.
I have a couple.
And, I don't think either of them really want war. The viewpoint is that the space, the area that Russia is most interested in, they believe that those are pro-Russian areas that are, uniquely and culturally Russian. And most of the people, and this has been seen time and time again, they speak Russian. They don't speak Ukrainian. They like Russia. They do a lot of business with Russia. There's
they voted to be a part of Russia.
They voted to be a part of Russia, and so it's like at some point, there becomes this scenario where it's like you have really bad international implications that are happening because Ukraine wasn't getting this figured out. And almost like they wanted this war, and it took a guy dumb enough like Zelensky to like feed into the pro-war Americans and the pro-war Europeans who were like enticing him to continue to escalate this thing. And now he's in a funny spot because he escalated.
He was put in place, just like Macron, just like Justin, for control reasons. They were puppets, and they were selected by the highest levels of friggin' deep state government elitists.
Beyond his control. He made the wrong political move here and opposing Trump. And now he's in a really bad position, whereas people are probably going to lose a lot of faith in him. And we've seen time and time again in Central and Eastern Europe where people, and I hope this doesn't happen to him. I don't wish upon anybody to get, basically incarcerated and killed by their own people. But we've seen this happen in Eastern Europe over and over and over again, where guys like Zelensky get way over their skis and they become inherently evil to their own people. And that's a really sad outcome for Eastern Europe, because, I think that I don't believe that Russia is interested in going to world war. I do believe that Russia is very interested in controlling the areas of Ukraine. And that, again, we shouldn't really take a position on that. That's up to Russia and Ukraine to figure out. That's not our problem. If every time we get involved with those border disputes and cultural disputes that like truly most Americans have no idea about, that's where we become like over our skis, and people start to lose faith in our federal government. And again, nobody wants that. We want a confident leader, like I think Trump just led with, which was just like, knock it off, Zelensky. We've done a lot for you. You should be coming in here being with a heart full of gratitude. And that's where we can start negotiating how America can be helpful to you. But you're exactly right. The outcome of that conversation is likely the opposite direction of that, which is just like, we're gonna remove ourselves even more, and good luck.
Yeah. All right. Let's switch gears back to America. Yesterday was a giant nothing burger. We've been told the Jeffrey Epstein files are coming out. People are going to jail. Names are finally going to be named. And then Pam Bondi hands out these binders, which are so redacted and so not new that people are now going, what the heck is going on? And then we find out that the Southern District of New York is purposely, maliciously withholding, protecting Jeffrey Epstein and those names. What are your thoughts on that story? And then we'll react to an Alex Jones story.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see more coming out here. I would guess expeditiously. I think what the goal was they were trying to drum up enough public outrage that would give Kash Patel enough cover to go get the answers. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay.
So,
there was public outrage. People are like, what the heck again?
I think it could have been. Look, it's difficult. It's like man in the arena stuff, right? So I always give people credit on our side for the Teddy Roosevelt man in the arena quotes, right? Which is like, you got to be the person in there to really know what's going on. I do believe, and we had some really close friends, close allies, a lot of Turning Point allies that were down, influencers that were down with Caroline Levitt yesterday, getting the briefing on this and where it's at. I think that I don't think they handled that perfectly. I think that the way they should have done was come out and say, hey, what I would have done is this. I would have put Pam Bondi on the steps of the FBI and said, and then have the influencers come out of the White House right after that. But like Pam Bondi on the steps of the FBI, don't even let the media know, just let a few friendlies know, and to say, hey, we're going to be releasing phase 1 of the Epstein logs here today. Most of this information is already public. The stuff that's not public or that we don't have is because the FBI is blocking it. We've discovered this. This is exactly who, what, when, where, why. And now that Kash Patel's in there, I mean, he just literally screwed in some new light bulbs.
Speaking about Caroline Leavitt, I just wanted to share because she's 27 years old. Her husband is 32 years older than her. And some people are just like losing it online over that. But I'm just going to show you what he looks like. So he's 59 years old. Like, he looks incredible. He looks like maybe even friggin' 10 years younger than that. And they have a new child together. So he's definitely fertile. I don't know like how they got impregnated, whether it was like with assistance or not. Again, I don't care. But again, this is just like an adorable photo. And he's super handsome. Nice suit. Zelensky, you can learn something from this. And he like really takes care of himself. So completely understand. And she seems really intelligent and like more like of an old soul. Anyways, again, I don't know her personally, just from like listening to her talk. She brings a lot of facts and data, and she seems very wise for her age. And so there's a lot of benefits to dating older men these days. Yeah, we don't want to date furries. We want to date men. I want to get on Viva Frey. I really like this post. He's a former litigator from Montreal. He's had people on the show from Canada that I know personally, that I've had multiple conversations with or that I've worked with in the past. And I've still not yet been invited on the show. And I have commented on his podcasts. I have tagged him in things as well. And it has not happened yet. Anyway, it is what it is. I like his stuff anyways. If you stand with Ukraine, go stand with Ukraine in Ukraine. If you want to support Ukraine, go fight for the army that can't find any more people to send to the slaughter. If you are a politician in any country other than Ukraine flying the Ukrainian flag in your profile, resign and go to Ukraine. And if you're not prepared to do that, shut your filthy, virtue-signaling mouth and let Ukraine and Russia figure it out. And had you shut your ignorant traps from day one, instead of being a bunch of virtue-signaling, politically ignorant, useful idiots on the internet, you might have actually saved 100,000 plus people's lives. But hey, they weren't your kids. Go ahead and stand with Ukraine, idiots. This sounds harsh, but he's coming at this where he was calling this out as well. And people like me, seeing the writing on the wall about all the harm that can be done and it turned out we didn't want to be right at all. And there was a lot of friggin' animosity pushed at us because of saying this, and it happened. And they're idiots. That's the nicest thing we could say at this point, right? Like, not criminals, not treasonous, genocide, human. Oh my God, crimes against humanity all over the place. And so, yeah, I really like that post. I really like him. You guys should share, should look at his work. It's really good. He's another Canadian that friggin' left Canada because of all of this under Trudeau, and went to Florida, went to the U.S. And like, so many Canadians do that we could use. Like Dr. Jordan Peterson, like, as well. Like, despite what people think about him, I think he's brilliant, and he's an asset to Canadians. And it would just be nice if he was here, and his family, and people like Viva Fry. Yeah, this is the graph I was showing before. Percentage of GDP and how much funding is going to Ukraine to commit murder on Russian and Ukrainian sides. Yeah, anyway. So much more content to get through, because we are at a pivotal point in history, ladies and gentlemen, right now. Even with Doug Ford getting reelected yesterday, and Mark Carney likely being the leader of the Liberal Party, and then inching closer and closer in the polls to being like, to bridging that gap with the Conservatives.
And adjusted off the his computer screen here and all of that. So we're going to give Cash this amount of time to get us the information, and we're confident that Cash can go do that. That Director Patel can do that, and I think that probably would have been a better. And then you have all the influencers out, with the binders, sharing things, reading it, and then giving their takes on what they see in phase one. But then you just keep doing that over and over.
I didn't like that. That the information was not submitted via like PDFs or just like drops on the internet for everyone to view. Why did this go to social media influencers? And why did it go mostly to what would be considered politically right-wing media influencers or social media influencers, whatever you want to call it? And so, like, that, again, to me, is propaganda psyops material, right? When you do stuff like that one-on-one.
Probably how I would have handled it. But again, you never know what's going on, how fast things are coming out. You also don't know who's trying to sabotage these things, right? So we saw this happen over and over with Peter Strzok and others, is that there's bad people within some of these organizations who will immediately come out and oppose some of the things that you'll say, or they'll try to undo it, or they'll try to come after people. And I do think that they're trying to avoid that. I think they're trying to do it the right way, which is getting the confirmation of everything and let Cash work, rather than being a bulldog from the DOJ's perspective. So
yeah, you make a good point. Now there's enough outrage from the American people that he can now justify being a little bit more aggressive. Let's see what Alex Jones had to say about this.
Historic developments have now unfolded in Donald Trump's populist battle with the globalist deep state. AG Pam Bondi's deadline that she set yesterday in a letter to Kash Patel to get her all the hidden secret documents at the Southern District of New York DOJ headquarters has passed. We don't know if she got the information, but we now know she's talking to specific high-level whistleblowers that had the documents themselves and were not told directly to give them to her. Thousands of pages, videos, recordings. And of course, we know that it came out in the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell that the FBI had all these safes, hard drives, and hundreds of notebooks, but they lost them or they got stolen, right? Well, we actually know who's behind all of this. It's James Comey. His daughter, Maureen Comey, ran all the investigations on Epstein and all the different federal cases there out of New York. Isn't that convenient? And then James Dennehy is over the Southern District of New York, and he's been the most arrogant person in the DOJ, saying we're not going to do what Trump says. We're going to dig in the resistance.
Again, I'm going to have to say, like, even Alex Jones has had people on his show that I know and that I've communicated with over the years that were following my content and taking my stuff. Not all, obviously, they had great stuff of their own as well, so I'm not taking away from them. They're amazing and heroes. But why have like put me on the show, Alex? Like, I know people have written to you and asked for me to be on the friggin' show, and because I want to help. Obviously, this is what I mean. Like, I've been sharing information I think is useful that could have possibly prevented a lot of harm and death all over the world, including with COVID. And I've shared what I was talking about, including even with AIDS and myocarditis and pericarditis and these cancers and tumors and blood clots, etc., years ago. And I was citing medical and scientific and government data, like I've shown multiple times, right? So this is stuff that is credible, is what I'm saying. and stuff that was incredibly censored in Canada. So I don't blame anyone that got vaccinated, especially at the beginning. Like, I never judged that, right? I felt concerned. I had concerned, and I felt bad that there was no informed consent, and that there's people not realizing just like how many adverse side effects there were, including contracting COVID via inoculation, like I was saying, not aspirating the needles, not looking and considering the natural immunity, not looking at the adverse effects with like weakened immunity over time, waning immunity of the effectiveness, all of this stuff. And a lot of people have died of so many different complications or are suffering from like long-term illnesses now because of these choices. And it's just heartbreaking. And I hate it. And even with the lockdowns, the mandates and the curfews and everything, like so many children, like I have nieces and nephews I love, right? And they were profoundly impacted during pivotal moments of their life for nothing. And they were lied to.
They just said dig in. Surprised he wasn't fired for insubordination back then, but he's going to be fired right now. And they let Congress have hearings and haul him in so he can defend himself. These people are arrogant, absolutely out of control individuals. They've had the Southern District for years with grand juries trying to indict my ass. I had to hire lawyers, all the rest of it. That's just some of the backstory you don't know about. Okay, these people are out of control. It is a weaponization, persecution, secret police factory. Okay, and they were running with the CIA Epstein. Okay, Comey goes way back.
Yeah.
Comey, a lot of evidence shows, was one of the main handlers of Epstein. So it's not like he's protecting the deep state. He is the deep state. And Kash Patel told.
Yeah, sorry about Comey's daughter being like one of the lead prosecutors for the Epstein case. And the Maxwell case. Well, I mean, it's all the Epstein case. It's all together. I was calling that right from the beginning, as well, and it's coming out now. But these were major concerns, like even with the honeypot stuff, and then there are people, Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, her father being Robert Maxwell, being tied to the Mossad and Netanyahu connections as well, doing all of these honeypot operations and blackmail and bribery on islands and on yachts and in like wealthy estates and stuff like that. There are a lot of people on that list as well that are part of a certain country, obviously a lot from a certain country. So not just the US, I'm talking about another friggin' country, right? Where these APAC handlers in Washington, D.C., where they make their money by ensuring that this information doesn't get out, because it's just because of the amount of people within a certain demographic, more and more people would be concerned about it, right? Yeah, and I'm just going to say it. I'm talking about Israel, but again, it's not even like Israel's getting exploited and monopolized as well through this, right? Like there are innocent people there that are getting groomed and brainwashed and indoctrinated into believing certain things. But there's also people that are speaking out against Netanyahu. There's been a lot of protests as well, and people within the Israeli government that have been sharing the truth about events and or retracting information that was wrong, and then apologizing for it and correcting the record and stuff like that as well. So, and sharing information regarding the vaccine adverse side effects, especially within the boosted communities within Israel. So again, there's great people there as well, but there are there's a lot of people on that list just by virtue of who were the main organizers of it, right? And so and just people are going to take that in a certain way. And anyway, but by doing that, you're just making it seem or look like it's more of the typical Christian types or other types that are like the main perpetrators or the majority of the perpetrators, and that is not necessarily the case.
Look, they've totally screwed up. We know they've been destroying this for years. We know that they've been hiding it. We know they made copies, and now we've got them in the obstruction. So there's more than one way to skin a cat. Patel's real. Bondi's real. These guys tried to pull a fast one, and it blew up in their face. I'll be on the air at 11 a.m. Central covering it all. Harrison Smith's on right now at 8 a.m. Central at Real Alex Jones on X and at Infowars.com/show for the backup feeds. This is historic. This is a fight. It takes time to win. God bless you all. We're winning.
Okay, so Alex Jones was kind of subtly saying, be patient, everybody. Pam Bondi's real. Kash Patel's real. But they are going up against people that have been trying to hide this. Now we find out, at least I found out this morning, that James Comey, who's now being indicted and investigated by Kash Patel, his daughter has been quietly working the Jeffrey Epstein case. She's also the one working the P. Diddy case. And they're the ones burying the information. I mean, this is like finding out Judge Juan Merchan's daughter is one of the number one fundraisers for Democrats.
Right.
I mean, like, there's just so much corruption in New York. Your thoughts on Alex Jones?
Yeah, I mean, the general point that he's making is exactly right. Sorry, I'm losing my voice here. Is that you have layers and layers and layers that have to be peeled back for this to even start to come to light, and that's not going to happen with Pam Bondi and Kash Patel just saying, "Hey, hand everything over." The big mistake that you would make is you going in, and it's probably the greatest analogy of this would be becoming a brand new zookeeper in a new zoo. Is you can understand everything about what it takes to manage animals. You can understand everything that it takes to feed and nourish animals, to know you're going to be there, but you're still 9 to 5. In some zookeepers' cases, you're there a lot longer hours than that, like Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. But you got to get to know the animals. You don't know what they're going to do. You don't know what their problems are. You don't know. You got to build a relationship with these people before they attack you. And so you're going to have all of these problems as you have. Largely, I would say most men in law enforcement, good men, go in for all the right reasons, and you have this gray area leadership that exists, that starts to exist within bad presidencies, that has created layers and layers and layers. I mean, we're talking years of dysfunctional corruption that has happened that goes all the way back to, probably starting with H.W. Bush, who was the former CIA director, and how things are looked at, how things are changed and manipulated, and problems people have ignored, because it's easier for each administration just to do that. Like, why would, in a 4-year term, would you take on these, really death spiral type of problems that exist within the intelligence agencies when you're going to be gone? And this is the reason why Trump is the only guy. He's the only guy that has the intestinal fortitude to want to do that, and he's going to okay. And so I really do think that Alex is right. Is we got to give the DOJ and Kash Patel enough time here to work. They don't need hours. They're going to need days and weeks and months to get some of these things corrected. I am positive. I do think it's a good sign. I think the way that they look at this is by talking about it now, it starts that process. I think the real problem would be is if they weren't talking about it, they were ignoring it and going, "Oh, no. Yeah, we'll get that later. You guys don't understand how much it takes." I think it takes a whole lot of guts for Pam Bondi to come out and start and say, "No, it's on my desk, and we're starting this," right? Because that signals to everyone in the other building, "Hey, this is a priority, and we're not going to let this go."
Yeah. So a lot of the influencers that and that I watch on X and YouTube, they took a lot of heat yesterday. Like, "Oh, you guys are doing these photo shoots with this binder only to find out, it's like heavily redacted." At the same time, I think it was played pretty well, because it's one thing for Pam Bondi to say, "Hey, I was given a binder that's redacted." It's another thing to have people that can collectively reach 100 million Americans and say, "Look how redacted this is. The government is hiding information from the Attorney General of America, the director of the FBI for America." So I think on the one hand, you had to get out that even top leadership is being blocked from knowing the truth of this big story. The question is why? Like, who are they really covering for? Who is James Comey and his daughter, and Letitia James and Alvin Bragg and all those people in New York? Who is it that they're really covering for? That's who we want. That's what we want answers on, right?
Well, and to your point, it was a little unfortunate, I think, the negative blowback on some of these influential voices, and I think it's kind of degrading just to refer to him as influencers. So I apologize for doing that. But I mean, there were a number of people who were there. Our own Jack Posobiec's there, who has a massive background, in the intelligence world with his background in the Navy, and a couple of other people I really respect a lot who have spent basically their entire lives investigating some of these things, like Cernovich and a few others. But it wasn't a photo op that was set up. Starmer was there. The Prime Minister of Great Britain was there, and all the media was there, and they just happened to come out at the same time. And so all the journalists were there and just snap pictures like, "Oh, what are these guys doing here?" And they just happened to be coming out with these binders. So I think it was kind of an unfortunate circumstance. It looked like it was set up by the White House, but it really wasn't. It was. I mean, if you've ever walked into the West Wing, walking into the West Wing down there, it's just there's a gap between the Eisenhower Building and the West Wing, and the media just they just hang out there because that's where everybody goes in. And so I think that it was a little bit of an unfortunate thing because the grassroots perceived this as like a setup thing, when I think, again, it was more of like, oh, they're waiting, they're going to release it, they're going to let these guys go, let them kind of feed into it. And then let them on their own free will kind of explain things as they see it, which I think is a really, again, that's a transparent issue that an issue of transparency that the Trump administration is embarking on, which is great. I actually like the fact that they weren't overly setting things up. They're just giving everybody the information, and they're going to bring in different rounds and different types of influential people to help get the word out so the public knows what's going on. I just think, again, it's, you have this situation, this circumstance where it's like, well, we probably could have, come out a little bit more unity saying, hey, this is.
Yeah. Okay. Snuff that. It was a great video. I'm not taking away from that. I just didn't want to show the whole thing. And so this is just conjecture. I have not, this is just on my social media feed, but I don't necessarily disagree with a lot of what's being said here. So CSIS whistleblower says Canada's federal voting system is like North Korea's, stating prime ministers are chosen from a secret elite family club decades in advance. Interesting. I've talked about the certain occult groups and frats and organizations like Bilderberg and Bohemian Grove, where these discussions are held and these selections are made. Yeah, I'm going to share this one. Oh, Canada.
If you unironically say that Donald Trump is the biggest threat to Canada and not Canadian politicians,
you are simply not paying attention.
Oh, no, this is 3 days ago. Sorry. Another emergency act in 2025. Bank of Canada says quiet part out loud. And this is another thing. I've been talking about Mark Carney for years, like I said. And I've said this before, but I want to reiterate, I'm not I've worked in that industry as well. And so even I've done executive protection services for the Bank of Canada governor, and which would have been Mark Carney at the time. So he had just left when I started doing executive protection services. I'm not going to say who I was working for, and to the company I was working for, but I was. And so I had a lot of conversations with the guys that were on the executive protection team, and guys that had been there for many, many years. And so I got a lot of information when I was there about so many different things regarding security, the Bank of Canada, certain other things I won't talk about. And so I'm not coming at this from a place where, I don't know what I'm talking about. I have a little bit more of an inside take than people. And these are the people that, the heads of these banks that go to Davos also. They go to Washington, D.C. regularly and other events all over the world and have a lot of influence.
In the case of a trade war, there's no bounce back. What that means, for monetary policy, we can't change that reality. The economy is going to a permanently lower path.
Yeah.
Are the tariffs coming? Are they not? Mark Carney, the globalist bankster, says that he's going to enact the Emergencies Act if he is installed as the next Liberal leader. So let's get into exactly the...
Actually, I'm going to say, because in 2022, during the Freedom Convoy time, I was set, I had said that I showed a post for my social media, but I was saying that if people don't start resigning or stepping down or being held accountable, as in getting investigated, I didn't want to do this, but I was going to publicly start shaming people because of the industries that I was working in and people that I knew. I had access to information that a lot of people wouldn't want out there. Right. And so and I've shown so many different examples of that where I specifically gave information on certain people. I even called them out by name and stuff like that, even again, at risk to myself, because these people are working in government. So again, I'm tagging you and stuff. If there's retaliation, I'm fucked. Right. And so, yeah, so that's why I've also been a little bit more anxious these last few years too, because I'm oh my God, I'm playing with fire. I know what happens, but I'm doing it because I think it's important. And, I forgot where I was going with this. Anyway.
Insanity of what Mark Carney said.
Oh yeah, I was going to say. And so I was told, and I will not say who it was by, but that Mark Carney was super rude to his executive protection staff. And these are not typical security professionals, right? And so I've done use of force training and so much theory and other training for security professionals, even for the LCBOs in Ontario, like the entire province wide. I was doing that training for a couple of years, and the company went down, unfortunately, during COVID. But so he didn't, like, there was like a lack of respect, and he didn't even like them being around him. And so these executive protection types, these are the Dan Bongino types, right? People that like, and one of the guys I will say, I know for a fact he's a veteran. He was in the he's bilingual. He had 20 plus years in the Canadian Armed Forces as an infantry soldier, and also in the Special Forces. And he had so much other training with it, like close protection, so many other things. And so he was selected to be part of that executive protection staff, right? And so I don't know if this is just conjecture or not, but even with Barron Trump, and I'll just say it because if it's true, then it gives me a lot of respect for him. But apparently, even since he was a little kid, he has like shaken hands with his security detail and shows them a lot of respect because he understands that they are very important and very qualified. I'm saying, like, not the DEI hires now, and like that's changed now. Cheaty's out, friggin' idiot, and like Harris and Biden are out with this woke shit, right? It's about merit, and I know so many people like that they have such great resumes, and so they deserve respect, right? And a lot of these people again have multiple degrees as well. And so very educated, and it's like maybe you would actually learn something if you actually talk to your staff, right? They're not just your little lackeys. And I will say that the people that I worked with were very respectful and nice to all of us. And so I give credit to that. They were, and so it was nice because it was a complete change, right?
Here, and you have to think about it in the context that he is one of the top picks to become the next Liberal leader. So let's hear what he said.
The thing that my government is going to do is to use all of the powers of the federal government, including the emergency powers of the federal government, to accelerate the major projects that we need in order to build it.
He's going to use the Emergency Act. He's going to use the emergency acts to push his agenda, whether we like it or not. You want to vote that in?
This economy
sounds a bit like
I'm going to rewind that.
Leader. So let's hear what he said.
The thing that my government is going to do is to use all of the powers of the federal government, including the emergency powers of the federal government, to accelerate the major projects that we need in order
to accelerate the major projects that we need. And we know that he's connected with WEF. And I've showed you also as well Canada's deep involvement at the highest levels of WEF, including pushing this AI, bio-digital convergence stuff, cybersecurity, massive surveillance, all of that stuff. And so he's going to push that stuff, the climate scam stuff, net zero stuff, even though he has assets, like financial assets and pipelines and stuff like that, like Brazil, and not like fully exposing like all the like the assets and the businesses that he still has links to, even though if he's going for prime minister, then he that's like a violation.
to build this economy.
Sounds a bit like
this is a dictate. Like, if you can't understand that is dictatorship, I can't help you.
Build back better, doesn't it? That's exactly the crazy thing that is going on right now. They're saying the quiet part out loud. You've got globalist politicians like Mark Carney, who's an ex-bankster himself, that is now on the ballot card to become the next Liberal leader, up against World Economic Forum trustee board member Chrystia Freeland, who is another top pick to become the next Liberal leader and could actually become the Prime Minister of Canada. And this is all happening because of the Trump tariffs, which he's once again saying are coming in just a few short days now. So Trump says that there's been confusion around the Canada and Mexico. It's been all over the place because it was said that it was going to be April 2nd when it was coming into effect. And once again, it's actually been confirmed that it's going to be coming into effect next Tuesday. So we'll have to monitor this situation because are the tariffs coming? Are they not coming? I mean, it just seems like the can kicking of this is never ending. But the economic consequences of doing something like this is absolutely crazy. And the fact that the federal government is coming in and they're saying that, oh, we're going to do pandemic style stimulus. This comes from Global News
Oh,
with
God.
fears of an economic crisis if Trump's measures hit this weekend. Some are calling for a relief package for workers and businesses along the lines of the pandemic response. And just think about that for a second. This crisis event could be used to put in more measures like that. And think about all the money that was put in the hands of corrupt and powerful when those measures were enacted. I mean, one example of that is the Arrive scam app and the amount that costs to procure, and the fact that if you look at all the things surrounding that, it looks questionable to say the least, including the amount that the government paid. And you've also got in the UK similar things happen when it came to PPE. Contracts were given to friends of these people who were in positions of power, and then the PPE was never used. So it's not like Canada is just an isolated case. Let's take
PPE. And I was also doing I had meetings to offer advice, consulting, free of cost to try to assist someone that's a millionaire. I won't get into too many details, but has also has a higher level security company and owns gyms, all of this stuff. But he was also selling masks during COVID, and so there was a bias when, like, in these meetings and stuff like that. Like, we're even having the meetings in the actual facility where, like, the masks were being made, right? And so, like, I was trying to point out stuff like that and talk about microplastics and then previous pandemics. And again, I just sounded crazy, unfortunately, and that completely severed, like, our relationship.
Take a second and look at what the Canadian dollar is doing right now, and it's down, 0.75%. It's not at the lows which we saw before, but it could easily fall and get down there. I mean, a lot of the news has been baked into the pie surrounding this. Obviously, there's a lot of fear and uncertainty over this, and that's exactly why I want to get into this chart, which really shows the provincial US export exposure, and it varies significantly with Alberta, New Brunswick, Saskatchewan, Ontario that are ahead of most of the provinces in terms of their export exposure. Obviously, Ontario is the most populous province. You've had a lot of buzz surrounding people moving to Alberta. So the fact that is top to be hammered by the tariffs should tell you really what's going on here. And then you have to think, if there is a tariff relief package, where is inflation heading? Because the thing that the tariffs will definitely do is screw up supply chains, which would be incredibly similar to what happened during the pandemic. And the Bank of Canada has already said that they're not really going to change their policy that much, because it will be a structural shift in the downward pressure on the economy, and there's nothing that they can really do to change that.
In the case of a trade war, there's no bounce back. If you introduce tariffs, the economy works less efficiently. We don't get those economies of scale. Businesses grow their businesses by growing their exports to the United States. They're going to invest less. There's going to be less production.
And that's why Canadians need to look at other countries for exporting opportunities. Unfortunately, we have to do that, and also interprovincially as well, right? And remove the barriers, the bureaucracy regarding, like, the difficulties with that as well, and the non-compliance and support of friggin' Quebec, my friggin' home province. Je viens de Quebec. I was born in Quebec, and I'm like, you're fucking it up for everyone. And so, like, even with these tariffs, like, it was supposed to be April 2nd, the day after Fool's Day. And by the way, April Fool's Day is when carbon tax again will likely increase. I'm hoping not. I'm hoping that the proroguement is overturned. I don't know the updates on that yet. Dan Knight has not posted anything since day 2 of the court hearing. So if anyone knows anything, please let me know, or where I can get that. Again, I've been focusing on other things, but I would really like to know what happened with that, because it's really important. And because if there's a vote of non-confidence or a carbon tax election, then it's gonna be finally stopped. And then it'll make Canadians much, much better off financially. Not the elitists at the top, like the Stephen Guilbeault, Mark Carney types. They will lose their friggin' kickbacks. And so if people want to do a trade deal with Donald J. Trump, Like we have people that want to pretend wear costumes and pretend they're furries and pretend they're cats and pretend they're friggin' other sexes and stuff like that. But like you won't wear a suit and or a dress or a very respectful business attire, a female equivalent. And when speaking to someone at that level, when like even with law firms and stuff like that, like there are guys like there you just gotta play the game, right? And there are wealthy people that like they won't do business with any companies if like the meeting if the person is not properly turned up, right? And so and that the expectation is that there's a business suit involved in that. And the fact that Zelensky is wearing a friggin' costume and is not wearing a business suit, the fact that he's gotten so much money from Americans and Canadians and Europeans, he can't afford a suit. Please. And he has never been on the front lines. He's an actor, like I've said before. But anyways, Trump needs to also respect the person, like, right? So if there's going to be any kind of a business deal, you got someone like Zelensky. He was even doing rehearsals with American government assets. I forget what his name is, but then he came out and said that afterwards, after the meeting, that Zelensky should resign. I forget what his name is. But anyway, and so because he was helping him through like these negotiations, right? Because it's very important that people properly prepare for peace deals, negotiations, etc., especially when you're talking to someone like Donald J. Trump, because again, this guy he's a businessman and he's gonna have stats and facts and details that he's gonna push at you and make it uncomfortable and want to share information like that you don't have, right? And ask for information that you don't have. Like you need to be properly prepared, well turned up. Like I said, Melanie Jolie going in a friggin' equine friggin' horse outfit, right? Like I don't know what that was, right? Like it's just embarrassing. And then a Zelensky in a friggin' casual Fridays. Like, what are you doing? You are rich enough. Like, your wife is going to boutiques in Paris, spending millions of dollars and really like in luxury vehicles. Don't. Yeah. Bring A game, rehearse. Show the numbers, show stats, comparables for imports and exports for USA versus other countries, all sectors, and try to come up with like a lot of pros for doing business with Canada at reasonable rates. Yeah, so if we have tariffs that are implemented immediately, the impacts for both countries, I've said this before, is going to be felt. Not even just in the like the manufacturing industry, like the lumber, oil, gas, etc. It's going to impact Canadians and Americans, right? Because like these, the U.S. does have more industry in place within their own country, and again, even though it's going to hurt Canada, I fully agree that should happen, unfortunately, and it's going to be short-term pain for long-term gain, because that means Canada, we need to stop being so reliant on one country. You can't do that, despite the fact that we are allies and we love Americans and stuff like that, and we want to do business with them and be their closest business partner. Absolutely, especially because it makes sense also geographically. It's not going to help them in the short, so it has to be phased, and like it has to be like a phased approach, and because it's not going to be overnight when these facilities for what they're going to be replacing within their country that they're going to be built, right, for any of these industries, and so it might take years, right? And so I think it needs to be a little bit more phased, and that's going to help you guys and us Canadians, and make it more manageable as we look at other alternatives in that process as well, right? And so like this is what I mean, like we need to have better people representing us, not people that have no idea what they're talking about and or being influenced by people that don't have our best interest or Americans' best interest at heart at all. In fact, quite the opposite, right? We have become a threat on the international field, and it's embarrassing, and it could just change overnight. Yeah, because the value of the Canadian dollar is going down, and so like that's also gonna further impact these the exchange rate, right, with Americans as well, and like above and beyond that. Yeah, we should have never gotten ourselves in this situation. Yeah. Anyways, let me keep talking.
Incomes will be lower in Canada. What that means, for monetary policy, we can't change that reality. The economy is going to a permanently lower path.
They're basically just dressing up, saying that Canada would head into a literal depression. We already know Canada is in the deep depths of a really bad recession, a really nasty recession, and the depression has been on the cards, as I've been talking about, for the past 6 to 8 months. So this is nothing new for the people on this channel, but the fact that the inflation rate could be going so high as a result of these packages that the government is unveiling, which have a globalist type agenda behind them, because guess what? The reason they want to peddle these huge pandemic stimulus packages is because it lines the rich and wealthy and all the corrupt politicians and the people that surround them at places like the World Economic Forum, where all these closed door meetings happen. And there's a very real risk right now that you have a bankster or a World Economic Forum trustee member who's going to be the next prime minister. And we've just had Justin Trudeau, who turned Canada into a dictatorship over 3 years ago, declaring the Emergencies Act on a peaceful protest. And it just goes to show the level of what you could see happen in Canada, and it could really be completely insane. Trump is also going after the EU now as well. So he's saying 25% tariffs are coming on the EU. And a lot of people kind of get this all wrong with the tariffs. They think the US is going to be the only one affected because they're essentially paying to import the goods from places like Canada, Mexico, the EU, if they're putting in these tariffs.
Yep. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. This is a good freaking point, because even Trump said on the Joe Rogan show, so he can't take that back. He said, no matter how much money you have, like you can't get it. It's not going to be removed from the internet. I'm sorry. He had all the evidence he needed to put Hillary Clinton in jail. And he has the same information I have and many, 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 many other people. And he didn't arrest her. He didn't put her in jail. People wanted that. He said it wasn't in the best interest of the Americans. I completely disagree with him on that. He is humbly, respectfully, he is wrong. In that case, people want her to be arrested, of course. Like, look what she has done, right? It's not rules for thee, not for, like, it's, no. And then also he had an interesting point about, he also shared this really weird, I don't know what you would call it, AI generated Gaza, like Donald Trump, like resort style country. And it didn't look like he was looking at any nature in that plan. Just more overdevelopment. Looks nice though, I guess. And then with Ghislaine Maxwell, when he was asked about her, like he had a lot more concern for her and her wealth and her, and her health and her well-being than actually, like, I don't know why he went there, like, and for as long as he did. And so, like, that's just very interesting as well. Like, I don't know, just weird.
But the problem that people aren't seeing here is the US is a huge exporter. So if the import costs are going up and more manufacturing does move back to the US, which I think is unlikely, but let's say it does, like Trump wants, then that's going to mean a structural change in the supply chain that's going to need to happen. And that just can't happen in the process of 6 to 12 months. So it would lead to sky high prices and a massive rise in inflation, or an economic collapse and a disinflation, deflationary recession. You definitely look at what's happening with bond yields in Canada, and it becomes increasingly obvious that the bond market is pessimistic about the future. This is the 10-year government bond yield. It's down over 0.5% today on the back of the news about the tariffs, and it's been going down. So that's telling you that inflation isn't coming. That's telling you that economic depression is coming. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out. We have to really monitor what happens with these tariffs. Is this just yet again another negotiating tool and tactic that Donald Trump is using here to get some leverage over Canada? It's really not clear at this point what the true intentions are. There's been a lot of talk around drugs and migrant flow, but if you actually dig into the numbers on that, especially from Canada, the numbers are so minuscule that it makes no sense. And Trump has also said that he's going to do reciprocal tariffs as well. So that means if you get into that trade war type scenario, that could definitely happening is a very real risk, because you've got the liberals that are trying to talk tough instead of get to the negotiating table. You've had a lot of people who've been personally offended and now feel bad and have a bad taste in their mouth when it comes to the United States. And it's all very, very bad. And the thing is, politicians are always working to try and divide us. And really, we have to unite, come together and push back against this instead of trying to blame it on the American people and boo their national anthem and do all these different things. You have to realize that a lot of Americans didn't even vote for Donald Trump, and they didn't want to see him in the White House. And the fact is that these tariffs and the economic policies, a lot of people have no idea.
He did win the popular vote.
What the true consequences are going to be of these tariffs. They don't think like we do on this channel. They're not critical thinkers, and they just believe everything that he said. They're polarized, and that's the problem. We've got a lot of polarization. We've got a lot of division in society. And once again, it's going to be real interesting to see what happens with the tariffs here and the relief packages. I really hope that they don't happen. But if we look at what's going on with gold right now, actually down on the day. So very risk off for the markets, with gold down and a lot of the major markets selling off. So it's going to be incredibly interesting to see what happens as this situation evolves. Who knows whether the tariffs are even actually coming, but we're going to see over the next week again. Maybe they're going to be paused for a month. We really don't know. So anyway, I want to thank you so much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed this video, check out this video here. And if you're looking for a VPN and want to help support the channel, please go.
Yeah, that was a great video. I got another one. I think it's Moose on the Loose. This guy, he's great. But he's also talking about Pierre in here. I haven't seen this video yet, and so I'm going to watch it with you. It's going to be a reaction video.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
The news every day here is absolutely insane. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we got Donald Trump going after Pierre Poilievre. Donald Trump throws Zelenski out of the White House. There's a long exchange there. I'll put that at the end of the video because it's like almost 8 minutes long. We got Trudeau wasting more of our money. We got a bunch of other stories too. Let's jump into this. So first up, we got the Ontario election here. The seats, just looking at the voting data here, this is very close to what we're seeing from the Abacus data. 43% conservatives, 29% liberals. So I think that's where the polls actually are, because these people actually voted. While it is provincial, it's not quite the same as federal. I think that's pretty accurate. We've also got this posted by Marty up north here. It shows voter turnout, 45%. So with things being so bad right now, not even half the people turn up to vote. Like, it's unbelievable.
And it's gotten a lot better.
Come on, Canada, like, get out and vote. As sad as it sounds, that's an actual improvement. Went up 2% from 2022. So there's a lot of bombshell stuff going on. We'll get into this Trump stuff later, but just first off, check out this. Zelensky getting thrown out of the White House.
What I was told, the president has kicked Zelensky out of the White House. His delegation right now is telling him that he's got to go home.
Wow. Next up, we got this one from Canada Proud. It says 4 NDP MPs have signed a letter calling on the Liberal government to deny entry to Canada for Michael Rappaport, an American actor and comedian, accusing him of being an R-word and I-word and all this other stuff I don't want to read out here. The NDP is out of control. They just want to ban anyone they don't like. They'd probably be more successful in achieving this if they called up Xi Jinping and got some tips from a real dictator, proving that Canada has communists in its government. Exactly. This is ridiculous. Next up, we have Tim Houston. This is the premier of Nova Scotia. He is pissed off about what the Bloc leader, Yves-Francois Blanchet, said about pipeline. It says here, we fiercely oppose any type of transport on Quebec territory of hydrocarbons from Western Canada to any market whatsoever. It does not serve Quebec. So Tim Houston pissed off about this because they want prosperity over there too. It does not serve Quebec. Alberta's net contribution to Ottawa.
You're buying from other countries, like even Saudi Arabia, but you're not going to buy from your own country, your own countrymen and women. It's just silly.
More than 240.
It can be cheaper. It can make it cheaper.
$4 billion from 2007 to 2022, dwarfs contributions from any other province. And here's Quebec freeloading off of Alberta's oil. The hypocrisy is just stupid. Next up from Juno News, we got Trudeau government releases implementation plan for Black justice strategy. This is about as dumb as you think it is. The initiative the government hopes will address systemic R-word. So the plan here is by reforming criminal justice system to treat Black offenders with greater lenience and offer them exclusive social programs. This is insane. If someone commits a crime, it doesn't matter what color their skin is. Come on. This is so dumb. Can we not be this dumb as a nation, please? And speaking of dumb, we've got Captain Schmuck here. Newly released documents revealed Justin Trudeau's grocery expenses topped an average of $1,515 per week billed to the taxpayers. Why are we paying for his groceries? He can pay for his own groceries with his $405,000 a year salary. Said we're paying over $6,000 for his groceries. I bet you that's not his eating out budget either. He's probably got another budget for that. What a waste of money. This guy has been an absolute waste. Everything about this guy is a disaster. In fairness, it was only one bag when he shopped at Loblaws. Wait, why do we pay for his groceries? Exactly. Why are we paying for his food? Canadians are mad. Pay for your own food, Trudeau. We want all our money back. Next up, we got Donald Trump getting pissed off at Pierre Poilievre because he's not a full-on MAGA supporter. I'm guessing it's because it's this clip here Mark Nixon posted from his rally.
Let me be clear. We will never be the 51st state. We will bear any burden and pay any price to protect the sovereignty and independence of our country.
And what did Trump have to say?
Conservatives obviously have taken a hit in the polls since some of the comments that you've made that the Liberals have leaned into. Do you think that they're still going to be able to pull it out there?
Well, I think his biggest problem is he's not a MAGA guy, you know? I mean, he's really not. He's not a Trump guy at all.
He's more of a throwback Republican.
Just because he doesn't want to be the 51st state does not mean he's not a Trump guy. I don't want you to be my president either. I want to have a prime minister. I want Canada to be its own sovereign country. And so, in fact, I think that we need to question even our commitment to NATO at this point because of everything that's gone on with them, like just corrupted from within, right? And but I still share a lot of positive things that Trump has done and his committee has done, and are possibly going to be doing in the future. And so, just like people are saying in the chat, I agree that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, like the information should have been released already. They're getting suckered too, though, and they're getting met with resistance. And so we should give it a little bit more time because this information coming out is going to be wild, and it's going to further fuel people's interpretation of like who's responsible for a lot of the corruption from within the U.S.
It's different.
Yeah.
Making a big mistake. They all make that mistake. You know, they think they're going to be the tough guy and they're going to knock out Trump.
Yeah.
And they end up getting the hell beat out of him. So I don't know. I mean, I can't tell you, Pierre. I just don't know. I don't like what he's saying about me. It's just not positive about me, and we've done a great job.
Yeah, this is about Canada and getting our sovereignty back and getting corrupt government out of our government. It's not about you, Trump. Surely he must know that Pierre can't come out and fully endorse him. He can't, because Canada is a more left-leaning country. In general, our politicians float around the center. If he comes out and says he's full MAGA, full Trump supporter, he'll lose probably a good chunk of his voters. Trump needs to dial it back here for the next month and let us get our country back in shape. If anything, though, this will probably help Pierre in the polls, the fact that Trump is pushing against him, because the Liberals are using it that Pierre is tied to Trump and they're good buddies. And if Trump's coming out and directly saying he doesn't like him, they can't use that anymore. So this is not a negative. This is definitely a positive for Pierre. People are saying it'll help him, can only help more Canadians dislike Trump more than they like him. This will be Canada first election. And these comments help Pierre prove that he will be. Exactly. Once Pierre negotiates with Trump, he'll see like, yeah, they're both on the same side. They're both right-wing politicians. Don't want the DEI, the woke nonsense, all of that. Trump's just taken back because Pierre's not blowing the Trump horn at the Canada First rally, which would be insane. Trump should endorse Carney. That would be hilarious. That would be the best way to get back at Justin Trudeau, to start endorsing Carney. Pierre Poilievre posted this one, says Carney said he helped Paul Martin balance the budget. So this is a story I ran yesterday. I'm glad he's got it all laid out here, getting this more exposure, because Mark Carney is a liar. And what happens when you're a serial liar like Mark Carney? You get memes. Got Brian Lilly posting this. Okay, the Carney memes are incredible. Share your best and favorite. So this one originally is from Jack. It says, Carney says he appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show with the Supremes. This just gets funnier as you go down. You are the Godfather. Escaping the Jonestown. I'm not going to read that one. Mark Carney taught Chuck Norris martial arts. Here we have Mark Carney testing his new invention, the aeroplane. Breaking new image of Mark Carney teaching Elvis how to sing. Oh, another Chuck Norris one. Mark Carney single-handedly carved Mount Rushmore in a day. Mark Carney built the Great Pyramid. The These are just endless. Mark Carney wrote a riff for the Guess Who hit American Woman. Little known fact, Mark Carney says he was actually the mastermind behind the Communist Manifesto. So if you're not familiar, this original photo is Elon Musk. Here's the original photo with Elon Musk. Carney, the first human on Mars. Carney is responsible for initiating the Big Bang. Pleased to have defeated the Spanish Armada. Carney invented fire. He burned down the White House in 1812. Scored the winning goal. Mark Carney freed Willie. Mark Carney winning his second green jacket at the Masters. Mark Carney with the golden goal at 2010 Olympics. Have you ever looked really closely at the Mona Lisa? There's so many on here. Carney's become a laughing stock. Next up, we got Melissa Lantsman getting harassed by Hamas supporters in a mall.
Palestinian children had to be before you stop somebody.
You can come to the town hall.
How many Palestinian children? How many does the minister? How many Palestinian children?
Okay, so I can't let the audio play because they keep saying a bunch of vile stuff, but they keep saying stuff. They keep harassing her all the way down the hallway. You can tell she's nervous. She does not like being near these people.
Everybody's invited.
50,000.
She just keeps saying, come to the town hall. And then she runs and hides essentially in a bathroom.
And follow me.
Do you support Trump's ethnic cleansing plan, Madam Landsman?
Yeah, that's Melissa Lantsman.
She has to hide in a bathroom.
She's a conservative MP, and she's fully supporting like a genocide in friggin' Ukraine right now. So still, I think.
This is not okay. There needs to be laws in our country that punish people. So just looking at the comments here, a bunch of Canadians very angry that they're harassing Melissa Lantsman. I have a feeling these guys got off a little bit easy because this mall is empty. I'm sure if there was more people in here, they would have had probably some physical pushback by Canadians. Next up, we got Donald Trump. Not only Donald Trump, J.D. Vance as well, both obliterating Zelensky in the Oval Office. Check out this exchange.
This thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred. And I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either. So it's not a question of alignment. I'm aligned with the world. I want to get the thing set. I'm aligned with Europe. I want to see if we can get this thing done. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough, but you're never going to get a deal that way. So that's the way it goes. All right, one more question.
Hey, I want to respond to this. So look, for 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the president of the United States' words mattered more than the president of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Yeah. Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now the President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact line?
2015.
2014.
2014 and
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
that's exactly right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022,
exactly.
Yeah, what the situation?
In 2014, Trump was not in office. Maybe in 2016, but again, he had no how much did he actually know about what was going on in Ukraine at that time with Hunter Biden and other people like Biden, right? That could have easily been stuff that was obviously covered. Oh, sorry, censored or not provided.
The same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that.
Yes, Trump is an actor.
We had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed him with gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people, and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office to try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Count once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of.
This could be conjecture. I could be wrong on this. There's just rumors. And I've been wrong before about rumors. Well, not wrong before. I've always said that there are rumors, and a lot of rumors that get circulated. It's propaganda, it's psyops, or it's incorrect. And so I just let people know that I'm tracking the rumors, but let's consider that this might be real or not real, and then take a look at it. And as we get more developments, excuse me. Oh my goodness. Anyway, they may have signed a peace deal prior to this meeting. And so I'd like to get more information on that. And so if that was the case, then what Zelensky did here was even more ridiculous than previously perceived.
Questions. Let's start from the beginning. Sure. First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You
God bless. You will not have war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
It's amazing. You see, Trump was quiet there for a while. He was really gathering his thoughts and then waiting for his moment.
We're going to feel very good.
Feel influenced.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influenced.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's back to you, far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you?
Today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war,
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No.
Can
You've
I
done a lot
answer?
of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning.
know.
You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
You haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet.
You haven't been alone.
Yeah, he has not been alone, not with all the money coming from all the country, especially America.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment, and you men are brave, but they had to use our military equipment. If you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
maybe less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do.
Yeah, this is pretty condescending of Zelensky. Oh, 3 days. He's not giving respect for what America has given them.
Business like this, I
Again,
tell you.
just say thank you.
I said a lot of
Accept
times
that there, accept
to
that-
American people.
Accept that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's
I
very
understand.
important. That's why I kept this going so long.
Yeah.
You have to be thankful.
It's very important for the people to see what's going on, especially now because there's just so much corruption, and people in the comments are saying the same thing. Like with there's so many corrupted leaders and puppets and actors like at the most important critical positions, and the writing has been on the wall now for years, just like this freaking collapse that people have been falling for, right? And like I've said, like I've known people personally that I cared about or admired that I've not wanted to, but I have called out publicly and with a lot of backlash in my community because of it, right? But it's because like Canadians, unfortunately, if you're not going to listen to what people like me are sharing, that's also helping you as well and giving you facts on the ground. Like it's also helping Canadian people, right? And so I have literally called out people like Wayne Eyre, who again, he's like from my regiment. Like I hate doing that, and this guy was a legend in the friggin' Canadian Armed Forces, but like through COVID, right? I was sharing the emails through access to information requests. I was like tagging him. I was emailing him medical, scientific, government data. I was giving memorandums to soldiers to try to like get to him and stuff like that. Trying to network within people that work with him, you know, about like just having conversations with them and talking to them about like things that have been going on in countries and how like he's been really incorrect about a lot of things and giving examples. And yeah, and so a lot of people hated me for that. Like even my former boss, he has not talked to me since, right? Like he's like, you know, like that's just a bridge too far, right? And I understood where he was coming from, but like he shouldn't have been supporting that and then vilifying me. Don't say anything, you know what I mean? But anyway, it is what it is. And then even like with people that I've worked with, I've even deployed with that, like even women that like, you know, like they had so much influence, like even within the legal community at the judicial level, lawyer type, and again, like international and very smart. And we were friends for a very long time. I have photos from us, like even through university and stuff like that. And she, like, I think was on the wrong side of history on that. And so like, there's information that I shared and you know, I feel bad doing it, but it's just like this, like, anyway. There's some people that you should listen to and some people you shouldn't. And yeah, and you should know where your taxpayers' money is going to. And then there's another girl, I won't say her name, but I retweeted something that she tweeted or posted on her social media. And she is a high-ranking military official and someone who, even when I was in Edmonton, like I hung out with her many times because she was dating a Patricia at the time, a Patricia officer, and so yeah, and so we had that connection and stuff too. But then, like with what's going on with Ukraine, she was fully supporting genocide, in my humble opinion, and she was reposting information from crisis actors from Ukraine. And I've shared information where there's people that lie about events and utilize and propaganda, crisis actors all over. I've shared it from Israel. I shared it from like the US. I've shared it from Ukraine, all over the place. And she was falling for it. And like she was working with NATO and representing Canada. And so like people are seeing that she's getting duped by crisis actors and spreading misinformation. But the fact that she was working at the highest levels of our government and also involved with NATO, that it's very important. It's very important that you know like what content you're looking at online and what you're posting online. And again, I hated doing that, right? And that obviously clearly like didn't help the relationship either. And but like, what are the other options, ladies and gentlemen? Like it's what are the other options? I got a lot of examples of that. Where was I? Oh yeah, I was going to share this because it's topical now. This just got posted from Jimmy Dore. It's so weird, 10 minutes ago. And so I haven't watched it yet, but I want to. It's
come see us on tour. We're gonna
right outside the White House.
To be in Baltimore, Hartford, Connecticut, Syracuse, Atlantic City, Levittown, New York, Cohoes, New York, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go.
completely bounced out.
And I've never been more embarrassed for America than the spectacle I just witnessed in the Oval Office. Well, Dave, if you're embarrassed, imagine how embarrassed the Ukrainians who voted for Zelensky are. You have to just imagine it, because they aren't allowed to speak out or vote anymore. So you just have to imagine it. He goes on to say Zelensky is fighting for the survival of his country, blah, blah. No, he's fighting to keep the slaughter going. He's fighting to keep the meat grinder of his people, a whole generation of men, wiped out. That's what he's fighting for. He's fighting to actually give up more land, because the longer the best thing for him to do is to create a deal today, because the longer it goes on, the more land take. Isn't that, I mean, so that's why David Axelrod wrong about everything here. Trump and Vance appear to be completely aligned with Putin. No, they're completely aligned with reality. That's what they're, because nobody has been. Europe is not aligned with reality. NATO is not aligned with reality. Biden certainly wasn't. He was, demented. But Zelensky should know that millions and millions of Americans still stand with him and his valiant people. I don't think so. I think people are done with the Ukraine war, and the more they learn about it, the less they stand with them. The only reason the American people were because they were propagandized against Russia and Putin for 7 years or longer, or 8 years, and now it's all wearing off. And people, they see a president talking about peace, and they're on board. Go ahead, Alexander.
I completely agree, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the point that you make about the fact that what Zelensky wants to do is not win the war or defend Ukraine. He wants to prolong the war for whatever personal interest he has is exactly correct. Ukraine is losing the war. That is the reality. The United States, the Europeans have done everything possible that they can over 3 years to reverse that, and they have failed. All of these people who make these criticisms, David Axelrod and all of the others, they never come up with an alternative that actually can save Ukraine, a real plausible alternative that they can save Ukraine. What they're engaging in is rhetoric. It's just rhetoric that kills people. And your point about Vance and Trump stating the realities is exactly right.
Well, there's a little bit more. Here's another headline from CNBC. Zelensky leaves White House after Ukraine talks collapse. I think a better headline would have been Zelensky leaves to meet Coke guy after talks collapse.
I heard he was kicked out.
Absolutely, I was going to say the same thing. He didn't leave. It wasn't he who left. Apparently, he was also escorted out of the building. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, I heard the same thing. I mean, I don't know why he's upset. Now he can go back to his high heels and rubber dance suit, right? I mean, isn't that's where he's the happiest? But that's embarrassing. But it wasn't as embarrassing as what just happened to him at the White House. I'll tell you that.
So someone actually asked him during a reporter, I believe, who was in the Oval Office, asked him if he's ever going to wear a suit. Like, asked him right there. I don't know if you guys could pull up that video, but it was I couldn't believe what I was watching. Someone asked him, and Trump's sitting right next to him, and they asked him, "Are you ever going to wear a suit?" And Zelensky said, "Well, maybe I'll wear a suit when this war's over. Maybe I'll wear a suit that's more expensive than yours or cheaper than yours." I mean, it was incredible just to watch the exchange, and Trump was sitting right next to him as this was all going on.
Well, here's what he had to say. Zelensky has now reportedly left the White House after arguing with Trump and Vance. Trump issued a statement that Zelensky can come back when he's ready for peace. Here's the statement.
I already posted the statement. I mean, I already shared it. Yeah, Jimmy Dore, he did get the shot. He admitted that, and he said he was vaccine injured, which made him look more into it, and then started speaking out against it, and giving his experience and stuff like that, and sharing medical and scientific and government data that was not looked at. And so, even as a comedian, he, I guess, was smarter than Fauci. Fauci. Elon Musk was on Joe Rogan. I think it was yesterday. And I didn't watch the full interview. I want to see if he has any insights on. So I'm just trying to get this comment off. But yeah, Dr. John Campbell too. I shared posts too when I was like talking to Dr. John Campbell. I was following him during COVID, especially about like him talking about the immunity, natural immunity, about aspirating needles and his concerns about that. And he was also someone that was he got 2 jabs, and he ended up doing a complete 180, and then started giving a lot of good information, great information, and yeah, it's bringing a lot more awareness on the VAERS and how this was politicized, and there was a lot of propaganda and psyops and censorship and all that stuff involved, and corruption and racketeering, and almost done.
Don't have the cards. You're buried there. Your people are dying. You're running low on soldiers. Listen, you're running low on soldiers. It would be a damn good thing.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't
Doesn't
with
matter
me.
for you what
That wasn't with me. That was with a guy named Biden who was not a smart person.
But it
That
was
was
your.
with-
It
that
was
was
your
with
brother.
Obama.
It was your.
You don't have any cards.
This is crazy. So immediately after this happened is when this clip happened.
The president has kicked Zelensky out of the White House. His delegation right now is telling him that he's got to go home.
Advantage in negotiations. I don't want EU, UK want conflict. The US is saying they can do it on their own. The main problem with this, and I think a real lesson learned for Zelensky, he's trying to talk over Trump. You don't do that. If this guy's trying to help you, you need to just stay quiet and speak when it's appropriate. Zelensky sounded like a little kid trying to talk over his dad. It's a totally new ball game. No more mincing of the words, just the facts. But it comes down to it, you know, what Zelensky was saying here, yeah, Russia's been aggressing, Russia's been pushing back, Russia has been taking advantage, nothing's been happening. When it comes down to it, they don't have any more people. All their youth are gone. They've been wiped out. They have no options. They need to make a deal. They need to cut a new border, and they need to move on. Then really what they should do is build up their country again, and then build up their military to a point where if Putin does come back, they can obliterate them. Got this one here from Shazzy Goli. BC blowout, Abbotsford, BC. This house was listed for $2.1 million in 2022. Now it can't even sell at 1.14. The market is coming down big time. Someone here having a laugh about the land taxes, $6,800. Like, come on. The whole housing situation, not only in the greater Vancouver, just in Canada, is just insane. It's out of control. Ain't no takers when nobody local has a job. I mean, if you just think about this, I've been saying this for years because I had a notary office with my ex-wife. The people who can afford to buy the houses, even back in those days, going back about 10 years now, Vancouver prices were still at like 2 million, 3 million, etc. in Vancouver, not in Abbotsford, but who can afford those? Like CEOs? It's all rich people from China. In the case of Toronto now, it'd be rich people from India. You got to think, when you have 1.3, 1.6 billion people, there's way more millionaires, thousands of millionaires that can come from these countries and buy houses and outbid any Canadian. That's what we saw in Vancouver, is just rich businessmen from Shanghai come over and just outbid anyone and everyone on all the houses they want, buy up 6, 7, 8 houses in a weekend and go back home. They don't even care about making money on the rent. They're just trying to launder their money out of China. These people in these cartels, they move their money around. They move to different locations. They don't always just stay in one. So often you see that they leave the greater Vancouver area and start investing somewhere else, and then they'd switch to somewhere else, and they come back to Vancouver. They really move around. So that's, I think, what pushes a lot of these housing prices, because Canadians can't afford this stuff. And it's a disgrace our government hasn't protected us against all of this big foreign corrupt money. There you have it. Just when we thought there would be peace between Ukraine and Russia, it doesn't seem so certain anymore, at least not right now. And Donald Trump coming out against Pierre Poilievre, that's only going to hurt the Liberals. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the polls, because the Liberals can't use that as their main talking point anymore. I mean, Mark Carney just the other day said Poilievre worships Donald Trump, which obviously isn't true. But if he says that now, he looks like an absolute idiot. Will Carney lie again? Of course, because that's what Carney does. A lot will change in the next week, not only with the polls with this stuff, but with Justin Trudeau finally stepping down.
Yeah, well, he did. But I mean, he's still somehow going to meetings and stuff like that, even when he's not invited. By the way, Trudeau, retract that. I'm trying to get this off the screen here. But anyways, Trudeau went to also meet with Zelensky and offered him again more, like I think it was like $5 billion more of our money, not his, and saying that it was in frozen Russian assets. And even when I find this video again, but like there's this guy that's all into the financials and stuff like that. But he was saying that even if you counted all the freezing of the assets, like for like what they were talking about, it wouldn't even be like $150 million. So where are you getting the additional $5 billion, like $4 billion from, like plus four, and like where are you getting it? And who are you exploiting, right? Are these innocent people that are just caught in the crossfires? Like, ridiculous. Anyway, crazy snow day. And so anyways, on that note, I will leave it at that. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.